Welcome back, folks, to Rapid Fire Elite, and today we'll cover the T-103. So this is going to be a premium tier 8 Russian tank destroyer. It is the turreted cousin to the Su-100Y, also known as the box tank. So in essence, this is a tier 8 Su-100Y with a turret, but Wargaming overly buffed the turret armor as well as the gun performance. So this vehicle could technically be at tier 6 or at tier 7, but we don't have a high tier tank destroyer for crew training or credit grinding for the Russian TD line. So I guess that's the purpose of this vehicle. But then again, we already have the ISU-130, that's moderators only, so we also have the KV-4, KTTS, but that's been collecting dust in the res folder for about 2 years, so who knows. So let's take a look at the T-103. So this was developed on the basis of the experimental T-100 heavy tank. The vehicle was intended to destroy bunkers and fortified emplacements. So it was meant to destroy entrenchments and bunkers and stationary targets. But if you can destroy a bunker, you can destroy a tank. So yeah, I guess they could call it a tank destroyer, but it's more like an artillery piece, I guess. But this was a paper tank. It was never built. So there are only blueprints and models. So it was very costly at the time to build such a big vehicle, as well as balancing the weight as well as the gun. It's 130mm BO-13 naval gun, similar to the Su-100Y, but this was on a turret, so you have to consider the turret ring diameter and the weight and the dispersion of the gun emplacements, how you should shoot it, so a whole bunch of stuff, and that's why they never built it. Now this vehicle is based off of the T-100 heavy tank, so it should weigh about 60-ish tons with an 800 horsepower engine. So horsepower per ton ratio is about 12.8 or so based on the turret weight. So it's a large ass vehicle, and it's relatively fast, about 36 kilometers per hour top speed. So technically you could go ramming similar to the Su-100Y. Similarly, but armor wise, it's only about 60-ish to 100mm, so not as thickly armored, but it's classified as a heavy artillery tank similar to the KV-2 later on. But in reality, the Su-100Y was rushed into war with Su-14 and Su-14-2 against Finland, but that was the whole service of the T-100 chassis, so they never actually built a full production line of Su-100Ys. So it was only one vehicle, and now it survived on exhibit in Kumika, so that's the only basis, only chassis left in the world. So this vehicle is the turreted cousin, paper tank, never built. Short history, but here you can see the development cycle behind the T-100, the SMK, and the KV prototype. So it all started with the T-35, this vehicle right here, the monstrosity of about 20mm of armor, or 10. So similar to the Mark 4s or A7Vs. It was multi-turreted with lots of guns. It was huge, super ineffective, expensive, useless. So they want to replace it. They came up with 3 prototypes to replace that, or candidates. This is the T-100. It has a sloped engine deck, so it looks pretty much like the SMK right here, but there are a few subtle differences, such as the turret, the road wheels, and the engine deck. So take a good look, but it's like the Su-100Y because it's the grandpa to that vehicle based off of. So the engine deck is sloped downwards, road wheels, turrets, yada yada. And here is the SMK. It's more flat at the back with different road wheels, turret shape, and the turret support. But in the end, they shortened the SMK to a smaller version with one turret and a 45mm / 76.2mm in the turret. So this is the grandpa to the KV-1, This is the KV-1 prototype, and they modified it, changed the dimensions, added a valve machine gun for the radio operator, changed the gun on the turret, and that's the KV-1 for you. And then KV-85, IS-1s, IS-3s, that's history for you. As for the T-100, they converted one of the hull into the Su-100Y, and this was rushed against Finland, and that was pretty much it. So that's the history. Fun, huh? But today's vehicle is the turreted version of the Su-100Y, so blueprint tank, fantasy tank, but it's based off of real tanks that were built. So alrighty, but here are the in-game models. So it's already in your game files, and this is a large ass vehicle, really huge with a gigantic turret. So it's even bigger than the Su-100Y because of the turret. So large size, naval 130mm, but there is a prominent weak spot. That's a mini machine gun turret on the top. So 3 DT machine guns right here for the boobs, but that's mostly used for infantry. So style wise, it's early Russian design, so does have the machine gun boobs, and machine guns were the the flavor back then. So the more machine guns you have, the awesome it looked. But now you think about it, it's mostly pointless. You just need one machine gun against infantry, and you can just fire high explosive and blow them away like grenade or artillery shell. So it's not a bad looking tank, but it's a huge target, especially for artillery, especially for high explosive rounds into the rear. So camo rating is not that great, but here are the main stats for this vehicle. So here you can see with the armor, the turret was buffed initially. So initially it was about 100mm for the turret. Now it's 220. So this is a paper tank. Wargaming could do whatever they want, but with this turret, it's impenetrable at tier 8, mostly from normal tank shells. So it's about 220 dead center, but it's sloped downwards and rounded. So 280, yeah, you're not penetrating this. 290, auto bounce 300, yeah, auto ricochet. Mantlet is weak to the left and right of the gun, so about 230, but above it, it's 250. So don't even try to penetrate the mantlet. The easiest weak spot on the turret is the mini machine gun turret right here. So shoot here, and it's only 60mm. So it's like the AMX M4 Liberté model 1949, and most high caliber, high explosive rounds have about 65mm of pin. So full damage to here, to the boobs at the front. Base support for the turret ring is 100mm rounded, but most guns at tier 7 could penetrate, let alone tier 8. So hull front 100mm. It's sloped like the KV series because this was based on the Grandpa, so not really bounce a lot of shells. It's 100mm, but it's pretty flat. You do have an upper plate of 45. You will get penned. Beak armor 75. Side armor is not bad. It's 100mm, but remember, this is a rounded support for the turret. So if you're side scraping like this, anybody could shoot right here and still penetrate because this part is rounded and the sloping is negated right here. So it's like somewhat of a FE215B because the base support for the turret is sloped diamondly, if that's a term, so they could easily penetrate this aspect of the vehicle. Oh well, but you do have gun depression, so make it work, 8 degrees. So that's pretty good for a Russian tank with a large caliber gun. So similar to the STI or ST1. So go gun depressing, hull down, and this will reduce the size of the mini machine gun turret on top, but not as much. So try to wiggle, but this vehicle turns slowly for the turret. As you can see right here, the turret turns very slowly, but you do have a lot of gun elevation. So you can shoot down airplanes, but we don't have airplanes or low-flying aircraft like helicopters. Meh. But penetration-wise, 258. That's pretty good. Above average. 440 alpha. Above average. But the DPM is 2,700. And that's pretty good for a high caliber, high alpha gun. So we talked about this for the WZ-121G. But usually you have low penetration or low alpha with better DPM. But now for this vehicle, pretty good DPM, pretty good alpha, and deep penetration. So it's the combo, similar to the ISU. But for the accuracy, it's on average not as bad, 0.345. So it's like the Stug 3 at tier 5, but it's like that accuracy. It's not bad. It's alright accuracy. It's better than the SU-101 with 122. Aim time is also pretty fast for a large caliber gun, 2.21 seconds. So, not a bad gun. High module damage, blows off tracks, damage engines, ammo racks, pretty good. 50 rounds, that's pretty decent. Shell velocity is a little bit slow, but if you can lead the BL-10, you can lead this gun. So, it's alright gun. It's a Russian gun. But it has 30 degrees of gun elevation, so pretty good on reverse slopes, sloping downwards. 8 degrees of gun depression, haul down, pretty good. Turret traverse is slow, like really slow, 15.6 degrees per second. So it's even slower than the Tiger 1. Don't get flanked. It's very hard to adjust to targets and prevent side shots into your large vehicle hull, and you are dead if you get flanked. But hull traverse is not as bad, 30 degrees per second, so this will help with the circle strafing of mediums or lights. Has a 15.87 horsepower per ton ratio, pretty decent for a large ass vehicle. 1000 horsepower engine. Yeah, it's chunky. And top speed of 40 kilometers per hour top speed. And not bad. It's alright. It's more like a heavy tank, but still worthwhile. Reverse of 12. This might be a problem, so don't go overly extended into hills or into actual battle. So be careful of that. Below average terrain resistance. So this is like a heavy tank's terrain resistance. It will get bogged down. So try to avoid swampy grounds unless you have cover or scouts in front of you. So don't be expecting to exit out of swamps or muddy terrain very quickly. Has above average health, so it's like more chunkier German vehicles like the Borsig, which is 1100 about, or about the same as T-28 prototype, but it's not as chunky as the Ferdinand or the T-28 or the Yak Tiger. Yak Tiger has 1300 or so, I forget, but it's relatively healthy, and view range is pretty good for a Russian tank, 380. That's like 30 more than the average heavy tanks at tier 8 for the Russians. So it's not blind. Radio, standard, crappy camo, super terribly bad camo. So you'll be spotted across the map, you'll get shot at because you're a large frame, and try to avoid that. So hide behind heavy tanks or have scouts in front of you, but it's a premium tank, makes more credits, makes more crew XP, and weighs about 63 tons. Now I want to point out that the AP shell and the gold shell are very much similar because it's AP. What the hell am I talking about? It's AP for the gold shell, there you go. But that's great compared to APCR shells because you have 5 degrees of normalization compared to 2. So this will negate sloping of various armor. So you have more penetration technically than APCR. Also, it's large caliber high explosive. So if you get frustrated, fire high explosive. Annoy the crap out of people. And reloads pretty quickly for the high explosive as well. So this will piss people off. So you can train 2 loaders with this vehicle. That's pretty good considering some of the high tier large caliber guns like the Object 704 or the Object 268 requires 2 loaders. So that's pretty nice. But here are some final thoughts and opinions about the T-103. So basically SU-100Y with a turret, but that's overly buffed, so it's at tier 8. It has the DPM, the alpha, the penetration, the ammo count, aim time, gun depression, AP shell for premium, gold shells, horsepower per ton ratio, health, and view range. So technically, it's a pretty decent camper of a heavy artillery piece of a tank destroyer, but it does require a good scout for you to camp at the back. Accuracy is not bad. 0.345 is not bad, but it does have a prominent mini machine gun turret on top of the main turret, so it will get pinned with high explosive. Turret traverse is slow, don't get flanked. Hull armor and the size means it's a large ass vehicle, will be spotted with crappy camo rating, and will be penetrated if you get shot at the hull. And terrain resistance is below average, so you will get bogged down. So basically means hide behind heavy tanks or have scouts, reliable scouts. But yeah, large hull, low camo, consider as a assault gun tank destroyer, not a traditional sniper TD. Prominent machine gun mini turret, only 60mm, high explosive will pin, slow turret traverse, prevents wiggling effectively, so try not to go toe to toe with heavy tanks that's hull down like the T-32 or vehicles like the Mammoth, unless you can penetrate their cupola reliably. But he can also wiggle his turret, so yep, plays. So it's a strong turret front and gun depression. Play this vehicle like the T-30 going hull down, but don't rely on the side scraping, round curvature of the turret support base, and try not to go hull down as much because the mini machine gun turret on top. So armor wise it's iffy, but it could snipe, so it's more consistent with better accuracy, better aim time and DPM than the SU-101's 122. So I'll show you guys right now, but here is the T-103. Let's compare this to the SU-101. So switch the guns around, but yep, the 122, that's similar to the STI, IS-8 or T-10 or the IS-4. But as you can see, it has better DPM, a lot better DPM by 1 round. That's a lot. A lot more ammo by 22. It's a larger caliber with more module damage, so easily blow off the tracks or damage engine, whatever. But a lot better accuracy by 0.1. That's a lot. And a lot better aim time. So technically, it's a lot better sniper gun than the SU-101's 122. And the SU-101's a sniper Russian tank destroyer compared to the ISU-152. So that was the balance. This was a better gun. This is a better gun than the 122. What? That doesn't make sense. So yeah, you could snipe with this gun. It's not bad. Just have a good scout and decent scapegoats if you get spotted. But it's likely prone to be bogged down, comparable to Ferdinand's Yak Tiger 88s, T-208 prototypes, AT-15. So basically, heavy tank chassis based tank destroyers, but it has a better horsepower per ton ratio to negate some of the mobility loss. So it should feel like ISU-152's mobility, but with better hull traverse by 10 degrees or so. So it's not as slow as you think, but don't be overly confident with the mobility. You'll be spotted across the map. So is it worth it? Well, due to corridor maps and city maps more often, so sniper tank destroyers are not as effective unless you have armor. So assault gun TDs are more favored because you can go side scraping, you can go hull down, and you have a little bit more health to save yourself. But if you cannot hide the hull or have teammates to take the hits, then playing this vehicle might be somewhat like the FE-4005. So you'll get spotted across the map and you're dead based on focus fire. So make sure you can hide this vehicle and have teammates support. So in essence, it's a pretty good support pseudo heavy tank. So hide behind Mammuts, hide behind Tiger IIs or Libertés or whatever, but here's a personal opinion. It's like you want to appreciate the AMX M4 model 1949 Liberté, but that cupola, just that cupola of 60mm, it's so disheartening because unless you don't have that weak spot, the vehicle is great. If this vehicle has like a 200mm mini machine gun turret, it's not that bad, and you can bounce a few shots, unaimed shots. So you can depend on going into battle at the front lines more reliably and more confident. But it has a 60mm mini machine gun turret on the top, and you'll easily get penetrated by light tanks or mediums. So I don't know, but it's a good support tank. So play it like the SU-100Y, have support, or play it in a platoon of medium tanks or heavy tanks. It should be pretty decent. The gun, that's the main focus of this vehicle, the gun. So there are rumors about the KV-4 KTTS appearing in the premium shop this year. So I would recommend the KV-4 KTTS if you prefer a heavy tank-esque of a tank destroyer based assault gun. But is this good for sniping tank destroyers? Unless you have scouts, it's decent. So if without scouts, it's rough. So might as well play with the SU-122 44 or play with the ISU-122S maybe, or with the SU-85I if you have the SU-76I. That's also pretty decent, but it's good as support. It's alright as average sniping TD. That's all I have to say about it. But in the end, there are a lot more TDs that's missing in action for the Russians. So you have vehicles like the SU-152P, basically a Waffenträger for the Russians with a large ass gun. You have the SU-100P, so smaller caliber of a gun, but you have the SU-152 Charan, so that's like the Russian FE-215B 183-ish of a tank destroyer. You have the SU-74 B and D. Now there are vehicles like the ASU 57, 76, or 85, but those are based off of the PT-76, I believe. So PT-76 is a little bit too modern, like the STB. So who knows? But there are also variants of the Object 268. Like we already have the Object 268 and variant number 5, but there are also 3 other variants. Variant number 1 is very close to the final version. Variant number 2 is like that. So like a rear-mounted IS-8 based tank destroyer. So variant number 2 is very similar to variant number 4, but there are differences in the armor layout. Variant number 3 is a smaller turret, similar to the variant number 5 for the Object 268, but there are a lot more Russian TDs. A lot more. There's also like the Object 327, which is 152 on a T-72 chassis. So I doubt we'll see that, but yeah, we can make a whole new line of Russian TDs. A whole new line, like paper tanks, but well, paper in armor tanks, not really blueprint tanks. They existed. They are on display in Kubinka. So there you go, folks, the T-103. So hopefully you learned some history behind the Russian TD development. Hopefully this video will enlighten you if you want to buy a high-tier Russian tank destroyer. But that's all, folks. So thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.